Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. You get me again tonight, solo. We are on the eve of the NFL draft, one of Trevor's favorite times of year, but it just didn't work out this week as well. Um, Sometimes that happens, and that's okay. So we're going to start with NFL draft. Again, this is not my number one thing, cup of tea. I do have a few thoughts, and really one of the big things is just because I'm a Bears fan and they have the number one pick for the second straight year. Last year, they did trade it to the Panthers and they drafted Bryce Young. And then the Bears got this year's first round pick, and it happened to be number one. And everything that's been said and done, they are all in on Caleb Williams. And they're not accepting any trades. They're going to draft him. Justin Fields is no longer on the team. And the coaches and the GM front office people are writing their careers are with the Bears on Caleb Williams. I think that's the right pick. He was a stud in college. He looks the part. He has all the physical tools. When the Bears drafted Justin Fields a few years ago, that was not my. I didn't think that was the guy they wanted. For some reason, I don't know what this is. Now, CJ Stroud may come to prove this wrong, but Ohio State quarterbacks have not been successful in the NFL. I don't know why that is, but it has been and continues to be proven. And until CJ Stroud last year becoming Rookie of the Year, it just kept happening and happening and happening. And unfortunately, Justin Fields is one of those. Lincoln Riley has coached several Heisman Trophy winners. Now, he did not have the season he wanted to last year, but Lincoln Riley knows how to coach quarterbacks. And for the most part, those quarterbacks have been relatively successful. Now, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, number one picks, Heisman Trophy winners, not maybe lived up to what they had number one pick, but they are still starters in the NFL and have went to playoffs with those teams. Something Justin Fields has not done. So I'm going to do a little bit. Just Lincoln Riley knows what he's doing with recruits and coaching quarterbacks and transitioning to the NFL a little bit more successful than the Ohio State quarterbacks. The intriguing part of the draft is how many quarterbacks are actually going to go. You got Drake May, you got Jaden Daniels. Yeah, those could definitely be the top three. Then you've got J.J. McCarthy, with probably top 10 guy. Then you got Bo Nix. You've got a Michael Penix. You got just lots of quarterbacks in a very quarterback heavy, and quarterback is the position that drives the NFL. Everybody's looking for their quarterback. We're going to find out who and if any of these guys are that person. Pretty sure the top three are all going to be quarterbacks. And I see how far Marvin Harrison Jr. falls. There's many people that think he's the overall number one player. Now, he's not going to be the number one draft pick. He's not even going to be number two, probably not even number three, just because all those teams in those spots need a quarterback. New England, Washington, and Chicago. And it doesn't matter how good your receivers are if your quarterback can't lead your team and you don't have a quarterback in place. Patrick Mahomes is showing that. If you have the quarterback, then you can plug and play receivers. Now, you still want and need a number one, and if you have a stud, that's fine. But it's showing that, you kind of have to do it, the Chiefs way, where they got the stud quarterback, pay him all the money, or you do it like the 49ers, where I think they have a stud quarterback, or at least a very above average quarterback in Brock Purdy, and not have to pay him anything. And then you can have a stud team around him. And then you go to a team like the Vikings that have a very, very good quarterback the last few years in Kirk Cousins, And then, probably the best receiver in the league right now, Justin Jefferson, and they couldn't get anywhere because they're just paying too much money in those two guys, and you just can't have a team around them. So that's the difficulty of being a GM and front office in the NFL, is how do you allocate the dollars for each position to get the best team. And the Vikings had chosen and moved on that Kirk Cousins was getting too much money for getting the team where it needed to be. Just a couple, Iowa ties. Cooper DeJean, how high does he go? I would bet quite a bit of money there'll be a first round draft pick. It's just how high. Can he go to 15 or is he at 20, 25? I would guess in those 10 picks, that's where he's going to go. Then the question is, where does he play? Will he be the first white cornerback to start since Jason Sehorn of the Giants? I think it's 20, 25 years ago. Be interesting to see. I mean, he is super athletic. He is, be just here. And this always happens right before the draft. One, he got hurt. And two, they always just try to downplay. I heard someone say he's a little stiff or whatever. If he's stiff, athletically, I want to see all these other guys that are playing cornerback. Iowa State has TJ Tampa, who's a cornerback. He's one of those iffy first rounders, really late first rounder, unless you find a team that really likes him, but most likely a second, possibly a third, if things just kind of don't go his way. But overall, any team that's drafted in the first 3 rounds is expecting that player to come in and start or make a big contribution to that team. That's what, first 3 round guys are expected to do. And then there's really no secret what the Bears are going to do at number 1, but I think it is a little bit interesting what they'll do at number 9, because that's the Bears pick this year is at 9. Are they going to take the best available player, one of the receivers, one of the Lyman Joel or one of those guys if they fall to them, or they've got enough draft capital that they've been able to acquire in a couple trades and everything that if they think they could get, go up 1 or 2 spots if Marvin Harrison Jr. falls. So they just, a whole string of quarterbacks go. They decide to take one of the linemen, maybe for some reason one of the other receivers go before Harrison, which do you trade some of that capital that you've gained with some of the trades to get up and get the guy that you want at 7 or 8 instead of 9? Or do you trade down and get more capital if you like another guy 2 or 3 spots below that you think will still be there? That's why all those guys get paid a lot of money and their jobs are on the line each and every year in each and every draft. I think they stay at 9 and to draft the best available player, one of those receivers, Neighbors, Harrison, or the lineman out at Notre Dame if he's there. I'd really like them to draft him if he is available to them when they draft. And, if Trev was here, we'd be talking about, the future bets and how many quarterbacks, all the different bets he's going to make for the NFL draft. And that's fine. That's not my cup of tea. One, I'm not even going to be watching the draft. I'm going to be at Zach Bryan tomorrow night in Des Moines with my daughter Paige watching that. Another intriguing thing that happened today in the NFL and the Bears specifically, me being a Bears fan, is they put out renditions of a new stadium, essentially replacing Soldier Field. And I think it's, kind of moved down the lakeshore just a little bit. It's still right in that same area. And then they build this stadium, then they tear Soldier Field down and leave the columns and everything and make a park out of that area, which overall is a good idea. I mean, I like that idea. But that's just a tough area to get to and from games. I believe you have to Uber or walk quite a ways or drive down there, and there's just not a lot of parking. And then in this renderings and everything, and maybe it'll develop, but the new thing with all these new stadiums is essentially having ballpark villages and malls and bars, restaurants, entertainment venues all right there. And I didn't see all that. Now I think some of the reason is that area is owned by Chicago Parks. So I don't think they can probably turn all that into that. It has to kind of go back to park setting, which is what they showed some softball, baseball fields, probably some soccer fields, which would be great. But I just wonder what happened. The Bears bought the old Arlington Heights uh, dog track. I think it was a dog or horse track. I think actually it was a horse track that used to be there. And I think that was kind of their plan, was to build a stadium out there, and then they had a bunch of area to develop into, using Chicago's example, but Wrigleyville, something like that, where there's just all kinds of stuff to do besides just the football stadium, and availability to make money all year, not just on those 10 dates where you have your home football games. Then obviously when you build a new stadium in Chicago, it's going to most likely be domed, because what they're going to want anytime you build a new stadium is you'll get a Super Bowl within the first few years of that building being built. And obviously that's a big money maker for the city and the ownership group in that situation. Now, the big argument with all this is billionaire owners are wanting money from taxpayers to fund a lot of this. Chiefs went through this and it failed. And I'm thinking that's what happened in Arlington Heights, was somehow the taxing and whatever, there was not an agreement on what was happening there. So it looks like they're staying in Chicago, which overall is a good idea. I mean, I like that idea, but you do wish they could build that entertainment piece along with the stadium for, when you go to Chicago for the weekend, go to a game Sunday, but you get in there Friday night, stay at a hotel right down there, right with the stadium, and you go to local bars or restaurants or music venues. And that's what people like I want. Not everybody. And I think that's what, I just use Wrigleyville as an example, and then Ballpark Village in St. Louis. And I know those are baseball areas, but Kansas City was kind of wanting to do that as well. And I think they'll probably still do something like that, because the Royals want to move pretty bad. And I think the Chiefs probably will just, tear down Kauffman Stadium and then develop that area. But we'll see. They might all move to Kansas, and who knows. And then kind of ending here, not going to have a real long, podcast tonight. Iowa State Cyclone basketball got another recruit, St. Mary's, Joshua Jefferson, great defender, exactly fits in, getting better on the offensive end. And this upcoming season for Cyclone basketball will be the biggest hype season probably in the history of the program. If you look at the way too early preseason stuff, and with the transfer portal additions, one site had him at number 1. CBS, Gary Parrish today had him at number 3. Pretty much a consensus top 10 and most top 5 team in the country. And I believe they're the only team with their top 4 returning scorers all coming back. No other team has that in the country, which is a true testament to the We Will collective and the coaching staff, because you kept your top 4 scorers, plus you added some really nice pieces that you needed, knowing that those top 4 scorers are coming back. So these guys coming in probably aren't going to come in and average 15. Probably 7, 8 is what you need out of them. Lipsy's going to have 15. Gilbert's going to have 15 to 20. Curtis Jones is going to have 10 to 15. There's There's your bull. And then you want Milanovic to 15 to 20 a game. And then you want him to have that big night where, and all those guys can, but you want him to be able to go 15 to 20 every night. And then on the good nights, he's got 30 with his shooting